On your knees.
Well, that way, actually, oh, look at that. I just feel like.
I gave him
so-
those.
it's like comfort.
Girl Scout was secret.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I need to- I'll do that again. I downloaded the app.
It's supposed to be extras.
See the work you're
Done.
done. So then I went through the tutorial and it actually was moving little stickies and I could change colors. And so
There's one board that says introduce yourself.
Sure.
Yeah, you're not gonna be here for the signer. There's an agenda.
This is one.
Oh, look at that.
Yep, you
It's
got
not
it.
me. It's me. Da, 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 da.
I can hide. Thanks. Want to read Arbor Day?
I can do that, sure. Gotta find the right ones.
Which button to push.
Yeah, right. That wasn't my first try.
You ready? Ready. Welcome to the Ellensburg City Council meeting of Monday, April 18th at 7 o'clock. So we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. By Councilmember Miller.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a proclamation tonight.
Take roll first.
Roll.
Yeah, that's okay.
Nancy's ready to get us out.
She's ready to go.
She's rolling. She's here.
Elliot.
Here.
Goodlow.
Here.
David Miller.
Here.
Lilquist.
Here.
Monica Miller. Tab.
I'm here.
Wint.
Here.
And now we have a proclamation for Arbor Day, and Councilmember Miller has agreed to read.
Thank you. I'll also put on my Washington Community Forestry Council hat, so I get to do this twice. Arbor Day proclamation, whereas in 1872, the Nebraska Board of Agriculture established a special day to be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can be a solution to combating climate change by reducing the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting heating and cooling costs, moderating the temperature, cleaning the air, producing life-giving oxygen, and providing habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, we, the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington, do hereby proclaim April 29th, 2022 as Arbor Day in the City of Ellensburg. And we urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, we urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations.
Thank you.
Move the mayor's signature on the proclamation.
Motion and second to approve the mayor's signature on the proclamation. All in favor?
Aye.
Two will vote aye. That motion carries. And I'll just say on a related note that Earth Day is the 22nd of April as well. There are no awards or recognitions, correct? So we will move to approval of the agenda.
Move the agenda as presented.
Second. Motion and second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Two will vote aye. That motion carries. Consent agendas before you.
Move consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
I too will vote aye. And Councilman Kim.
I just want to make the council aware, I had a conversation with the city manager. If you noted, some of the minutes that we're seeing are really ancient. It's been an issue that we've talked about over time, but I want to make folks aware that Heidi is aware of that, that they're working on a better process. So that, I mean, if you review minutes, that's one of the ways we have of understanding the conversations and discussions that are occurring in the boards and commissions.
Thank you. We are at item 6A, board and commission appointment. This is a landmarks and design commission recommendation. I guess, Monica, as our liaison, you were part of that process. Did you say? Mr. Redmond?
Staff and I met with Mr. Redmond and we had a wonderful discussion about his passion for our city and historic structures and learned a lot about him and enjoyed the process that we are now all experiencing that the city has defined.
Mr. Redmond, would you like to introduce yourself to the council?
Well, my name is Fred Redmond, and my wife and I, Ann, who is a native of Ellensburg, I was moved here about 3 years ago, 2018, and we promptly purchased an old house up in the Railroad Addition, renovated it. It only took a year longer than we'd anticipated, but I won't tell you what the budget was. But that went well, and part of that process was reviewing this with the Preservation Commission, and involved presenting some drawings. And I found that process to be pretty beneficial. I mean, it helped me think about the design and also got me acquainted with the city and how it operated, kind of a bit of a introductory civics lesson. We went through that process and got our permit. The house was finished and we're now enjoying it. Just a little bit of background. My wife and I, we've been trying to kind of get back into Central Washington for about 40 years and we finally made it. So I was a practicing architect in Seattle, and kind of my day job was at a number of different firms. It included just sort of a normal architectural practice, but our evening job was renovating the houses that we were in. And so with this house, we just finished in Ellensburg, that would be our fourth one. And over the years, I've had a real affinity for doing that kind of work and have enjoyed it very much. And it was really pretty nice to come here and be introduced to the community through the Landmarks Preservation Commission, and look forward to continuing that.
Thank you. Thank you for applying. Is there any questions for Mr. Redmond? Is this you change this so it's
They
all
all are,
emotions? Council needs to move.
Okay, I move to as a new commissioner to the Landmarks and Design Commission.
Second.
Motion and second to appoint Fred Redmond to the Landmarks and Design Commission. All in favor?
Aye.
And two will vote aye. That motion carries. Thank you. This is time for citizen comment on non-agenda items. This is a chance to speak to the council on an item that is not on the current agenda, but does have to do with city business. You have 3 minutes. There is no one signed up. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak on something not on the current agenda? Is there anyone on online who would like to speak? And it appears no one is raising their hand, so we will move on. So tonight we have a public hearing on the Ellensburg taxi service application. And I have a script to read. So the purpose of this hearing is for the city council to consider the pertinent facts, applicable law, and make a final decision on the matter of the application for taxi cab certificate from Sean Graham. I ask for your cooperation in the following procedure. This is an open record hearing. Everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard. The city clerk will be making a recording of the proceedings. I will first recognize requests to testify from anyone attending this hearing in person, followed by persons attending remotely via Zoom. If you wish to participate virtually via Zoom, you must raise your virtual hand on the Zoom meeting screen or press *9 if you're connected by telephone and wait until I have recognized your request and you have been unmuted. When you are invited to speak, begin by stating your name and address and indicate whether you're speaking for yourself individually or as a spokesperson for a certain group or both. Speak slowly and carefully. Only one person will be allowed to speak at a time. Any questions of staff are to be directed through the council. The city council seeks to conduct this hearing in a manner that is fair and unbiased in both appearance and fact. Therefore, I would ask the council members the following questions. Will any member of the council obtain any financial benefit or suffer a financial loss because of the outcome of this hearing?
No.
No. I too say no. Does any council member believe he or she cannot hear and consider this matter in a fair and objective manner?
No.
No. Also no. Has any council member engaged in communication with opponents or proponents regarding this issue outside of the public hearing process?
No.
But I have to read the second part. Will any council member be employed by a party for which the potential employment may be a result of the decision in this matter?
No.
No. Is any council member a member of or involved in such associations or organizations, whether formal or informal, which takes a position on the application?
No.
Is any member of a council member's family or any person with which they have a social relationship, an advocate or witness will provide oral or written testimony or argument in this matter?
No.
No.
Is there anyone present who objects to my participation or any council member's participation in these proceedings on appearance of fairness grounds? Seeing no one. Before we hear from the audience, is there a staff report to be presented?
Yes, I will. Beth Leader, City Clerk. Sean Graham, who is here tonight, has submitted a taxi or an application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity for operation of a taxi cab service. Per City Code Chapter 6.46, council has the authority to direct the city clerk to issue the certificate following an open record public hearing. There's currently one other taxi cab service, Rodeo City Taxi, which runs up to 4 taxi cabs. The city population would support up to 13 total, and Mr. Graham is requesting running potentially up to 2 taxi cabs. If council finds 2 criteria have been met, 1 is further taxi cab service in the city required by the public convenience and necessity, and 2 is the applicant fit, willing, and able to perform such public transportation and to conform to the provisions of the code and rules declared by city council. If council determines that the applicant should be issued a certificate, it should provide that direction by motion.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Does the applicant or the applicant's representative have comments they would like to make at this time? If so, if you would come to the microphone.
Hello, my name is Sean Graham. I've been a driver for Casey Cab for the past 4 years, and they recently went out of business due to the death of ownership, and I feel that there is a need for more taxi service in Ellensburg, and I seem to have a knack for doing it, and yeah, I'd like to continue it on.
Thank you. The floor is now open to testimony from the public. Each person will have an opportunity to address the council for an initial period not to exceed 5 minutes. If more time is needed, it will be made available after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Sir?
My name's Rick Miles. My wife and I moved here 3.5 years ago from Bothell. I have an eye condition, macular degeneration, which makes it illegal for me to drive. And trust me, the city of Ellensburg doesn't want me driving around. There's no bus service that goes out to the grasslands. I have used Casey Cab a bunch. I probably call them at least twice a week. My experience, and I'm not here to throw dirt at Rodeo Town Taxi, but in the 3.5 years, I've gotten 2 rides from those people. They're always busy, or they say, can we pick you up in 3 hours or something like that? And I can walk pretty much anywhere in Ellensburg in that time. I have been picked up a ton of times by Sean when he was with Casey Cab. And I find Sean to be a super nice guy, really prompt, honest. And if you say, hey, Sean, can you pick me up at 8 tomorrow morning because I've got a dental appointment, he's always there. That's not typical with a lot of taxi drivers. I found him to be polite, fun, interesting, honest, and just a good all-around guy. This town needs more taxi drivers, and I think Sean is a peach.
Thank you. Does staff have anything to add? Okay. Does the applicant have anything to add? Council, do you have any questions of the applicant, staff, or public? Seeing none. Before closing the public hearing, I wish to advise everyone present that the council reserves the right to reopen this hearing for additional questions or take additional comments later tonight or at a continued hearing if needed. The public comment portion of this hearing is now closed. Council, you may now begin your discussion and deliberation of this matter.
Madam Mayor, I would move that we direct the city clerk to issue a
Certificate of public convenience and necessity.
certificate of public necessity and convenience to Mr. Graham.
Second.
Okay, a motion and second to direct the clerk to issue a certificate of public convenience and necessity for Mr. Graham and his taxi service. Is there any discussion?
Question, because we're, but do we need to articulate, there were a couple specifics.
The
Does that need to be part of the motion or is that assumed?
I think it's assumed by the motion.
And then my second question is that it's for Ellensburg's taxi service, not specific to Mr. Graham. Should it-
I'd ask the city clerk, is the application in in the personal name or in the name of the?
It's in the name of the business license is in the name of the Ellensburg Taxi Service.
We'll amend the motion to be for Ellensburg Taxi Service.
So the motion is to direct the city clerk to issue the certificate of public convenience and necessity to Ellensburg Taxi Service. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The two will vote aye. That motion carries. Good luck with your new business. We are being ahead to new business, 11A, page 115, revised board and commission handbook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council, Terry Weiner, City Attorney. As most of you are aware, the city provides a commissions and boards handbook to newly appointed members of all the city's boards and commissions. That handbook has been around for many years and gone through several iterations. But with the advent of the passage of ordinance 4883 earlier this year, which substantially revised the process for appointments of board and council commission members, as well as how they interact with one another and some other details, it became apparent that our handbook needed a substantial revision. In addition to that, the current handbook has a lot of information that's directed, I would say, more towards council members who are newly appointed. And the city manager has likewise substantially revised that process so that she now holds an onboarding meeting with quite a bit of detailed information for new council members. So it's not necessary to have that mixed into what really is the board and commission's handbook. So with that background, we undertook to revise that handbook, trim it down quite a bit, taking out some information that was no longer needed, as well as eliminating some sections that were, or I should say, revising some sections that were impacted by the new ordinance. So what you have before you is a quite a bit shortened version of the handbook, but nonetheless, it's filled with a lot of information, important information. We also added to that a code of conduct at council's request earlier this year to guide board and commission members, not only in their work as a board and commission member, but also just to alert them to the fact of how their role impacts their public life, as well as potentially some of their social media activities. So that code of conduct begins at page 7, continues on to the following page 8 in the handbook. And so we also included in there the new appointment procedures, which you utilized just tonight, and explain that to the board and commission members. So I think overall it's a pretty significant revision of the handbook, and it should take the boards and commission members, well into the future. I think this handbook will provide a good sort of guideline for board and commission members for quite some time into the future. So with that, I can answer any questions you have. The recommendation is to approve adoption of the new boards and commissions handbook.
Just a quick one, really. What I noted on attendance requirements, then a member can be removed from office for various reasons. Should that also cite the code of conduct? Because the code of conduct indicates that you could be removed.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Town, where are you? Which
I'm
page?
sorry. So I'm on page 128 in our packet, and then referring back to, I think it's page 8 of the handbook, which was the code of conduct. The code of conduct indicates you can be removed. This first paragraph doesn't refer back to the code of conduct, which would be one of the reasons for removal. But it's not a big deal. It's just,
Yeah, I felt it was a little bit redundant because the standards actually send out in the newly adopted ordinance for removal, and it's worded a little bit broader than is worded in here. But we can certainly clarify that if you'd like.
I'm fine with it as long as you don't feel like somebody would look at this and then that somebody would violate the code of conduct and then point to this as the reason I'm not, you can't act on removing me.
I'll add that in. It's not a problem. Yeah.
Councilmember Miller, did you have some?
Yeah, I have two questions for staff, I believe. They're pretty minor, I think, but I just want to make sure I'm following. On page 120, the section of the report on page 121 that describes the department's supports for various boards and commissions. Under Finance Department, the last line of paragraph 2 says the Finance Department provides staff services for Fire Relief and Pension Board, which I get, but when I look under the listing of boards and commissions, starting on page 130, there's no Fire and Pension Board. So do we need that, or is it an inactive board, or I'm just curious about that. Does it exist in our current?
They do. Yeah, thank you.
I staff that and it's not inactive, but they don't have.
So, okay. So we. Oh, that's
Got a
over
red
there, right?
card.
Okay,
First red
okay.
card.
So I guess
Yes.
I would defer to staff on that. Do we need to
Well,
include that?
is there currently an active board?
There is an
Okay,
active.
so we
board.
should probably
Okay,
include that. then.
fair enough.
Thank you.
My second question is, under our list of our group of boards and commissions, the one unusual appointment situation we run into is with Centrifuge, formerly EBDA. And it occurs to me that we don't actually appoint, we're accepting their recommendation, whatever. I guess my question is, as it's described in the document, Centrifuge operates as an independent legal entity. So my question is, do our rules apply to them?
They do through the charter. So that's one. So in other words, certainly the appointment rules are specific in their charter and their bylaws. So that those wouldn't apply. But for instance, the code of conduct would apply since they are a city created
So, okay.
organization.
So it's understood on their end of the cooperative arrangement that these rules will apply to them and they're responsible for enforcing them. So, okay, that's all I wanted to be sure of. That's all. Thank you.
Other council members?
I had a clarifying question about the elections of the chairperson and vice chairperson, given that 2 of the commissions or boards aren't they automatically council members? So this doesn't necessarily point to who elects those chair people. If it's worth calling that out.
So you're on page 129.
123 under
123, sorry.
where it says the chairperson and vice chairperson of all advisory bodies are elected annually in
Right.
January.
Yeah, so for LTAC and DI, and also I think for the UAC as well, we could I can add some wording in there.
Yeah, the UAC, that's not a rule. It has to be a council member. It just kind of has been the last few years.
Right.
We've also had non-council people be
Chair.
Chair.
Okay, I will add some wording about that.
I have a couple if no one else does. There are 4 commissions that have grant programs. And they're not identified in their duties and responsibilities as administering those grant programs. And I would like to see that in there.
Could I was piggyback on that a little bit. When I was thinking about the roles, I was thinking about the grants also. In particular, those situations where the council liaison actually has a role in the voting, which is rare, but I think it does happen sometimes in certain things like the
Well, the
art-
UAC.
The art commission had a situation where a council member
Oh.
was in a voting position, and I don't know if that needs to be defined in the rules, but that's what I was thinking. Kind of along the same
For the
lines.
Arts Commission, it's defined in their policy.
Um, And the Environmental Commission is also the Bicycle Advisory Commission. And that duty is not expressed. And I wasn't clear if you were getting this straight from the duties and responsibilities straight from the ordinance, the enabling ordinances. And I had thought that we had changed the Environmental Commission's enabling ordinance to include those duties. And if it's not in there, I wouldn't mind exploring getting it in there.
Don't know, I'm trying to find it right now, but if it's not, we'll
It's-
put it in there.
And then my last, well, and actually, lodging tax. And I don't, this may not be worth it, but you had cited the, like in the planning commission, there's an RCW that prevails. And that's true of the lodging tax as well, that there's state law that applies to that body that there's not a citation. Because it still applies. But, okay, so the last one, when I got to page 133, I kind of skipped right over those words, conducting a public hearing, and then jumped to a guide for the new chairperson. And what I was expecting under the heading, a guide for the new chairperson, is how to run a meeting efficiently and effectively, and make sure everyone's voices are heard and all of that. But it jumps right into conducting public hearings, which very few of our commissions do. I think it's only planning and landmarks. And so I understand why that's in here, but if we could provide maybe a little more guidance on our expectations of what being a chairperson involves.
There's a little bit of that under the chairperson's description,
maybe.
for like being, you know, balanced and strong and
Okay,
making sure discussions don't get sidetracked.
okay, well, maybe never mind. Maybe it's already in there. Just maybe changing the headings.
And if I might add, this isn't meant to be exhaustive. So
No.
we are actually working on an onboarding process that we follow through a number of steps. And so this is a general overview, and we're going to pair this with some other tools and information for both new and existing board and commission members.
Great, thank you. I like what was done here, and I think it will be helpful to our new commission members. Are there any other thoughts?
Just had a comment. I really like this too and appreciate all the hard work that you put into it. Very, and, signature. I did have a question on some additional facts, and I wondered, how did you make a decision of which ones you were going to give? And should we all of them were from the kind of from the utility perspective, talking about our utilities, and I'm wondering about our parks and our library. I don't want to add, maybe in the second edition of this.
I have to be honest about that. I just took what was already in the old handbook and just put it right in there. I didn't take anything out in terms of additional facts.
All right.
But I could see how this in particular would be relevant to the UAC.
Yeah.
This is exactly.
Very relevant to the UAC.
But beyond that,
That's the Arts Commission.
well, maybe there's Stephen Pump or something.
Oh, great. Okay. Given the amendments that were requested, shall we bring this back? Or
It's
You
up to you. I think I have pretty clear direction, and if
Okay.
council's comfortable adopting tonight, I'll make those revisions and then distribute it.
Madam Mayor, I would move that we direct staff to make the suggested amendments and implement the updated boards and commissions.
Second.
Motion and second to ask the staff to make the revisions requested this evening and adopt the boards and commissions handbook. Is there further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Two will vote aye, that motion carries. Okay. We are at approval of One Washington Memorandum of Understanding for potential opioid litigation settlement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Terry Weiner again. This is a little bit of an unusual situation where we're discussing not litigation we're directly involved in an open meeting, but there's sort of unusual facts. So as many of you are aware, there's been a lot of litigation around the manufacture and distribution of opioids over the past several years. There are thousands of those cases that have now been joined together and are pending in Ohio federal court. At the same time, there are some separate lawsuits that are pending in Washington. One is the state of Washington has filed a case directly against some of the manufacturers and distributors. That case is pending in King County Superior Court right now. It's actually been in trial since November of last year. And trial is basically almost finished. I think they have closing arguments coming either this week or next week. It's being tried to the court. The state is asking for hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe in the billions. I'm not quite sure the amount of damages they're claiming. Meanwhile, the manufacturers and distributors in the Ohio federal court action have made a settlement offer last summer to the tune of about $27 billion. And the way that settlement is structured, they have a formula calculated for every city and county within the 48 states that are part of that lawsuit in Ohio. And so we're not involved in any of this litigation, either on the state level or in the case in Ohio. But the attorneys representing there are some cities and counties that have sued directly here in Washington in addition to the state. And the attorneys representing those Washington plaintiffs want to get an agreement amongst all of the Washington cities and counties to join in any potential settlement. And the reason for this is because now that the case has been tried, they're going to be waiting for a decision from the judge, probably for weeks, is my guess, to sit through all of that. There's going to be some pressure on everybody to settle those claims. And so to do that, the defendants are saying, well, we need every city and county in Washington to be part of the settlement. We're not going to do it piecemeal. So through AWC, they've been requesting that cities sign onto this memorandum of understanding as to how those settlement proceeds, if they settle the claims, will be divided. And there, you can see there's a formula in there. It has to do with the county statistics for each county in Washington in terms of how many opioid deaths they've had, what costs they've incurred, and so on. And so they already have that formula set forth in one of the exhibits. And you can see it's a very, it's a very small percentage that would come to the county and the city in terms of actual percentage, but in terms of dollars, it could be quite significant. The similar states that are involved in the federal court case in Ohio, they're receiving about $500 million each. So if you take that and even adding, multiplying by these percentages, it could still be a significant amount of money for both the county and the city. So they're asking that we return these signed memorandums of understanding if we're going to join it by April 30th. There isn't really a downside to it. The attorney's fees will be paid out of a separate fund if there is a settlement. So we're not going to be paying anyone to participate in this. And the money, has the funds, if they do become available, you can see that there are certain activities and programs that the money can be spent on. But so it is a very structured sort of settlement. So my recommendation is to approve and authorize the city manager to sign on to these agreements. And then ultimately, if there is a settlement agreement that we'd be signing, we'd bring that back to you. It would be a joint settlement agreement with all the other defendants. So with that, I will be available to answer any questions.
Other questions?
Madam Mayor, I move that we authorize the city manager to sign the One Washington Memorandum of Understanding for the allocation of future settlement of state opioid claims.
Motion and second to authorize the city manager's signature on the One Washington Memorandum of Understanding regarding the allocation of funds for future settlement of opioid claims. Is there any discussion?
I would just say that, this is what we've been working on in public health, emergency medical, criminal justice, with a significant focus over the last 10 to 15 years. It has reached our city at a much higher degree than 3 or 4 years ago. I'm not debating blame or, assigning responsibility for it, but this is a legitimate issue in our community.
Anyone else? All in favor?
I
I too will vote aye. That motion carries. And the Affordable Housing Commission recommendation on sales tax funding to Hope Source for affordable housing, page 176.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. This is Jamie Ailing with the Community Development Department. And what I have before you tonight is a recommendation from the Affordable Housing Commission on the application from Hope Source for an affordable housing project. On March 15th of 2022, the city did receive an application from Hope Source, and their request was for $750,000 from the Affordable Housing Sales Tax Funds in order to acquire 4.8 acres of property located at 1200 South Ruby Street. This includes a vacant hotel that is known as the site of the Knights Inn. The proposal for this particular project would be to rehabilitate that hotel property into an apartment. There were 32 units in there, but they would convert that to 16 units by combining 2 of the rooms into one to make an apartment out of those, each of those 2 rooms being one for the total of 16. And then they would have future plans on the rear 4 acres of that property to develop up to potentially 40 dwelling units of affordable housing. Per the guidance of the council and the open application process that the Affordable Housing Commission has, they did review the application at a special meeting that they scheduled on, the Affordable Housing Commission scheduled on March 16th of 2022. And they also came back to a second meeting, the regular meeting on April 6th of 2022. Hope Source had originally proposed a permanent supportive housing model program, but after discussions with the Affordable Housing Commission and other public outreach, they ultimately returned back from, they presented that at the March 16th Affordable Housing Commission meeting, but then returned to the April 6th meeting with a revised request. And that was to ask for the same $750,000, but that would be to acquire the property and convert the hotel into affordable apartments, going away from the permanent supportive housing model. And then also doing the future commitment to up to 40 units on the remaining 4 acres. As you're more than aware, Hope Source was previously awarded $373,000 from the city's affordable housing funds and signed a contract for that on December 8th of 2019. And that was to construct 5 units of affordable housing for seniors. And that was referred to as the Addison Place project. But due to several factors, including cost increases for building materials, that project is no longer feasible. So the existing contract for Addison Place would be terminated and the funds reallocated back to the affordable housing budget. We never expended any funds on that project, so that's kind of an easy fix to just mark those off, but put them back in the fund. Hope Source is requesting equal shares of funding from both the city and the county for this project, $750,000 from the city, $750,000 from the county. And then they would also look for additional funding on their own for the rehab of that structure. The Affordable Housing Commission is forwarding a recommendation to council to award funding for this project as submitted with their revisions by Hope Source, and develop an agreement for the distribution of the funds, which would include a 50-year affordability clause if approved. The total physical impact to the city would be $750,000 for 2022, as they would just use that money to purchase the property. Those monies would be distributed to Hope Source as determined in a future contract, and the funding for affordable housing is included in our 2022 city budget. However, this project specifically was not anticipated in the budget and will require an additional $750,000 expenditure authority. The funds would be in the budget, but we didn't plan on spending these plus the other projects. So that's what would be needed. Staff would recommend, with support of the Affordable Housing Commission, that the council authorize the mayor's signature on the award letter that I included in your packet to Hope Source, approve the necessary budget amendment, and provide staff direction to initiate contract negotiations with Hope Source. With that, I could stand for any questions.
Other questions for Mr. Amy? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on the matter?
Susan Grindle, CEO of Hope Source.
They were about to give me a red card. I was smiling.
You're good.
It's like, we have to speak into the microphones. Close.
And your question was?
No, do you have any comments for
What I would like to commend the council on is the Housing Commission, the Homeless Housing Commission that we met with. They asked good questions, tough questions. And as my daughter said, if I was going to give you $750,000, I would want answers to those questions too. So I applaud them for doing the good work for the community and not just, conversing and talking, but actually doing research and asking the good questions.
Thank you. And does anyone else would like to speak? Okay.
Is there anyone from the commission online that would like to?
There are people online, but would anyone online like to speak to the affordable housing proposal? Jordan Rule.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Jordan Ruley. I'm on the Affordable Housing Commission. Yeah, we did approve this motion, and I just wanted to make sure that we have some sort of contract in there that is pushing the timeline and making sure that Hope Source is held accountable for pushing the project forward in a timely manner.
Thank you. So my understanding is tonight we're assigning a commitment letter, and that following that there will be a more formal contract.
That's correct. And I think there are some terms in the award letter that's provided for a timeline.
And the contract would come back to council for approval.
Okay. Thank you for your comment, Jordan. Is there anyone else online who would like to speak? Seeing no one.
I would comment that the county affordable housing committee approved this unanimously.
Okay.
And forward a favorable recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to support the project.
Okay. So the county has already committed their 700.
No, they have not.
Just their commission told their commissioners that
Commission
they,
has. Okay.
I believe they're making a decision on this tomorrow at their regular agenda.
Thank you for the clarification. Charlie Sorensen, would you like to speak?
Hi, this is Charlie Sorensen. Like Jordan, I am also on the Affordable Housing Commission. And I just wanted to offer myself, if you had any specific questions about the commission's decision process or anything, I'd be happy to answer to the best of my ability. Otherwise, I think this is a potentially excellent project that would go a long way to addressing some of our missing middle housing. And I hope that you see your way to support our recommendation. Thanks.
Thank you.
How do you want to manage this? I've got some comments on the letter itself, and I would actually clarify Nancy's point. My understanding is that the recommendation from the counties of Homeless and Affordable Housing Commission was initially for the permanent supportive housing.
Yes, that's.
So I think we need to understand that the recommendation from our Affordable Housing Commission is different. And I want to also applaud Hope Source for entering into the conversation and be willing to understand where the community need was relative to where the money might be to get it done simply. Because I think that was part of the original piece. But I think it's important for us as council to recognize that what the county is looking toward us to provide the framework for what they will act on tomorrow. Because I believe there were concerns that were raised about the permanent supportive housing component as opposed to the affordable housing component. So just, and then I don't know if we want to, how do you want to do the letter? Do you want a motion to get it moving? And then there's some things that I would like to speak to in the letter.
You can either amend before or after a motion.
Well, so then I think the major piece, so one, we had a couple things that came on our dais here that were not part of the packet. One is a slightly modified agreement, letter of agreement, or what are we calling it? Award letter. The other was some information that Hope Source provided that was a narrative that I think reflects the direction that we're hoping to go. And I think the only piece that I would raise in the award letter is on the second page. It's budget and scope, and Terry can certainly work me through this, or the city or Heidi. But the budget and scope of work were based on the applications and supplemental attachments submitted. And then there's a reference to match the needs of the city in Ellensburg and Cass County. I remain concerned that the budget and scope of work that was presented was focused on permanent supportive housing. And so I'm still not sure that we have the clarity that provides direction within the award letter to in essence, use some of the language that was provided by Hope Source as they moved through their process. You know, to add, for instance, third paragraph, fourth paragraph on the submittal from Hope Source that came to us this evening is to add a 16-unit affordable housing within the next. We plan instead to utilize conventional financing to it's fiance, but we'll go with finance. The renovation of the existing units into affordable housing units for households. And then that could reference our RCW. I think it's just important to recognize that the application has significantly shifted. And any reference other than the $750,000 to me is potentially problematic. Because the application referenced the House Bill 1866 Apple Health. It references permanent supportive housing. I mean, there's a whole, it also references affordable housing. But I think what we're attempting to accomplish is to create affordable housing consistent with the RCW, reflective of the community needs for 60% AMI and within the categorical funding that we have within our RCW. And so I don't know if it's appropriate because the application came in through it's our open process. But I would suggest we reframe this to not make reference to the application and simply make reference to the $750,000 commitment. And then actually the bullet, the proposal and contract must meet the requirements of the City of Ellensburg Affordable Housing Fund and RCW 82.14.530 and reflect and match the needs or reflect the needs of the City of Ellensburg and Kittitas County. To me, that's language that gets us to where we want to go. It references our affordable housing. It references our RCW that's driven the funding. And it inserts clearly that the project is there to meet the needs of the residents of the City of Ellensburg and Kittitas County.
So as I'm looking at this page, you would delete the fourth bullet.
I think it's the fourth one.
The budget and scope of the work will be based on the applications.
Yeah.
And I think the fifth bullet is important
No, I'm fine with
to
that.
keep.
I don't want to get into wordsmithing the entire.
No,
I-
right.
I am merely saying that bullet to me is problematic. And that
Okay.
if you go down and simply say the proposal and contract must meet the requirements of the City of Ellensburg Affordable Housing Fund, RCW, and meet the needs of the City of Ellensburg and Kittitas County, I think we have accomplished what the Affordable Housing Commission has discussed. And I think it's consistent with the conversations that we've had with Hope Source in moving the project forward. And certainly Susan or John Raymond is their operations. If that's inconsistent or that creates a concern, this would be the time to speak, but that would be my suggestion.
And I appreciate your catching this, because there are some other differences in the application in terms of term and the AMI requirements. And so clarity on where we're going with this in this letter would be good. Does the city attorney have any concerns about deleting the fourth bullet?
No, I think that's
Okay.
Yeah.
And is the 60% AMI requirement in the affordable housing funds? That's
our
already,
position stage.
okay. So Bruce, yeah, Ms. Grindle, or do you have any comment on this, the way this conversation is going? Are you, if we remove that fourth bullet, are you, do you have any concerns? Okay. They indicated no. So
So then
ready,
we make a
ready to make a
motion.
motion?
So I would make a motion that we support the Affordable Housing Commission's recommendation and authorize mayor's signature on the award letter subject to the modifications.
Moving the fourth bullet.
Well, it's more than that. Subject to the modifications that were discussed. Is that,
Second.
it's more than the fourth bullet,
adding
because I think
something
it's
to the
important to say that.
Sixth, adding on to the sixth
Yes.
bullet.
That's it, okay. Okay. Motion and second to authorize the mayor's signature on the award letter as amended in this discussion and approve the necessary budget amendment. And I think you include providing staff direction to initiate contract negotiations.
That's, yeah, whatever. I'll speak to it.
Go ahead.
I mean, I just, not to beat anything, I want to just recognize the work that Jamie put into this to get it to the point that we actually are moving forward with this. That was not simple. I want to recognize the work of the Affordable Housing Commission. I think there are really incredible conversations and committed people to make this a project which really reflects the needs of this community. It was a healthy and I think a good process. And again, I want to recognize Hope Source and their administrative staff's ability to enter into the dialogue in a way that got us to this point, that heard what the concerns were, modified a proposal that I think ultimately will benefit everyone, and their willingness to move forward with that knowledge and input from the commission, from staff, and from the community. So I think that needs to be recognized. Thank you.
Anyone else? It sounds like this is going to be a good project. I appreciate your work on bringing it forward. All in favor?
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Carries.
Boom.
Progress. Boom. Son Eric would say boom speed. So we are at managers report.
Excellent. Thank you. Heidi Barron Sternaway, your city manager. Few items to note, and a number of them are in the written manager's report. Public hearing to consider Katy Meadows preliminary plat is set for the next council meeting on May 2nd. And staff would request council set a public hearing for the 2022 supplemental budget ordinance at the May 2nd meeting as well.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second to set May 2nd for a public hearing for Katy Meadows. All in favor?
No, you just need to do the supplemental budget. Katie
Supplemental
Meadows
budget.
one's already done.
Oh, sorry.
Second one, number 2.
I voted for it anyway, Nancy. It's good.
We'll still vote for it.
I'm sorry, I got distracted by signing things.
It's that tax expenditure issue.
Motion is for the supplemental budget.
Okay, so the motion and second to have a public hearing for May 2nd for the supplemental budget. All in favor?
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Thanks for catching my mistakes.
I have a few more items here, if I could. Downtown spring cleanup, just a reminder, this Saturday, April 23rd, 9 to 1. Folks are meeting at Unity Park. And if you prefer not to clean up downtown, I understand some Rotary clubs are going to clean up the entrance ways to the city at the interchange. And so we can find contacts for you if you're interested in joining that group. And just for your information, our city staff got in gear and put in an application for fiscal year 23 appropriations with a solar and smart grid modernization project to the tune of about $3 million. Some wonderful letters of support from our community, from Hope Source and Central Washington University. And so just fingers crossed on that. Couple other items. Our community development director, Kirsten Sackett, has taken a new position with the city of Moses Lake. So we'll be hosting a little celebration for Kirsten on Friday, April 29th. From 3:30 to 5 here in the council chambers. Just an opportunity to say farewell to Kirsten. And we announced today that Jamie Ailing will be appointed the interim director for community development. We're also going to be making a few little shifts within the organizational structure. The community development, I will be supervising that. And one of my departments, the library, is going to move over to the assistant city manager, Terry, and for supervision. So moving forward, very excited about that. One last thing, if you didn't get, we have an invitation for a double header for Central Washington University on the 29th. They are doing a health sciences building grand opening, and then also later in the afternoon, a health education groundbreaking. So 2 major projects, sort of finishing and beginning at Central. So again, if you don't have an invitation, let me know and we can get you details. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Great, thank you. We start with you, Adam.
Not a whole lot to report. At the lodging tax meeting, between last meeting and this one, nothing really there. The county is meeting on May 4th, I believe it is, to finalize their revisions to the their matrix for scoring the applications. Other than that is all I've got.
Thank you. Tab.
No report.
I had 5 minutes to prepare. I had a question about, earlier I had a question about the process of notifying residents about the parade route. And I know that it's assumed that everybody knows about the parade route, but I wondered if there could still be some process for notifying new residents and new businesses and new employees of the fact that it's happening, and perhaps make some suggestions around parking for that day. Is there something that we can do?
Absolutely. I thought that was a wonderful call out for something that often many of us take for granted until you're new to the community. And Fair and Rodeo Weekend takes you by surprise. So we can certainly work with the rodeo board and the fair folks to make sure we get some announcements out.
I met with a group around the Historic Preservation Month, which is in May, with the bulk of the activities happening, I believe, May 14th. That will include a tour of homes and some other activities. So save the date for May 14th. And Thursday, I get the honor of attending that short course on local planning. So stay tuned for my next report on that.
Yeah, that will be exciting.
It's a fun afternoon.
Go ahead, David.
So just a couple things. I attended the Washington Community Forestry Council meeting. It's a quarterly meeting. Mostly the discussion was 2022 grant awards. So good news there. The council was able to tentatively award about $500,000 of funding for communities. A lot of variety of projects, but a lot of the communities, small communities and large, they have the street tree inventory projects, forest management plans, things like that. So that's a good injection of grant funding. Bad news is that the majority of the additional funding was a one-time only opportunity, so we missed the opportunity to apply ourselves. There'll be grants available, but this large chunk of money that's part of last year's legislation is going to be gone. So we'll just see what comes in the future. And then on the Arts Commission last week, did that and just regular business. But interesting, this week, participating tomorrow and Wednesday with both the chair of the Arts Commission and staff representative on the interviews for vacancies. And it turns out in this case, there is, I believe there's one current vacancy. One current member is not applying for reappointments, terms expired, so that's really two vacancies. And then there are two other incumbents who've applied for reappointment. So I believe, as of at least last time I checked, we're only interviewing 3 people, including the 2 incumbents. So fortunately, we don't have to make that hard decision, it appears, to decide between an incumbent and a new interested applicant. But I can tell you that in the conversation, there was, it wasn't long or heated or anything, but there was some discussion from the incumbents about having to reapply for the positions they have. And I think Josephine and staff rep did a good job in explaining the council's thinking behind this. But it occurred to me that we probably as a council, when we created this system, may not have taken enough time to talk with our current board and commission members about the intent. Because I think it's intended, the impression, not strongly held, but the impression was, if I have to re-up, I must be, we must be looking to replace me. I mean, that's sort of the natural conclusion. But I reassured them, and I think Josephine did better than I did, that the intent is to create opportunities for people in the community. So it's not intended to target incumbents. But it just occurred to me that we probably could have done a little bit more to explain that to our volunteer board and commission members. So no harm done really, but I think it's something that that second thought we could have, maybe even still, it might be, it's an ongoing question. So put that out there for consideration. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Appreciate those comments, David. In terms of the DEI commission, we're interviewing 2 prospects this this week, and one is an incumbent and one is a new person. So that will be a good process for us, I think. We did meet the DEI Commission last week. I think now that the things we've been working on this past 7 or 8 months for the city in the land acknowledgement statement are out of the way, we're ready to move forward and start really planning activities and things that we want to do in the next 7 or 8 months. We're also having discussions about our budget and whether or not we'd like to have a grant process similar to some of the other commissions. So there's a lot of good discussion, a lot of excitement going on right now. And the 2 new people that we appointed a couple of months ago have really added a lot of energy and excitement to the commission. I'm very excited about that. On a personal note, I wanted to let people know, most of you probably know by now, but some may not, that we lost a person in our community on April 7th who contributed a lot of time and energy and care and concern for this community. Jack Frost lost his battle with COPD. He was involved at both the city and county levels in a lot of different ways over a lot of years. In his 16 or 17 years of work that he did, he served on the County Homeless Affordable Housing Committee. He was a volunteer at the fair. He worked at the Restore for Habitat for Community, served as a board member there. He was an AARP volunteer. He had numerous awards from CWU and his work with the Rodeo Club, just to name a few. With the city, he served on the Parks and Recreation Committee for approximately 9 years. He was a member of the first Public Transit Advisory Committee that we had and helped get the vote for that creation of that commission and for the Transit Authority. Is passionate about that work. And he was also an usher for the Ellensburg Rodeo, to name some of the things that he was involved in. But he was one of those guys that you would say everybody in Ellensburg knows Jack, and probably a lot of that is true. So just wanted to remember him and let you know that we will be having memorial services for Jack Frost on May 6th at the Ellensburg United Methodist Church. The service will begin at 2 o'clock, and there will be a reception at the church so that the community can gather and celebrate his life. Thank you. Councilmember Elliott.
Centrifuge, their conversation centered around bonding and some upgrades at the airport building, which eventually they decided not to do. Planning Commission was effectively reviewing the things that we had reviewed prior to them. So they went through their public hearing during that process. I was not able to make the KitCom advisory meeting, and that may happen to me for the next 3 or 4 months. I've got some family medical stuff that's probably going to get pretty bumpy. So I may miss meetings, and I'll try to make sure somebody's there in my place. And in this case, Heidi was there. And then finally, one of the things that isn't, so directly involving the city, we're indirectly affected by it, but the county has effectively one person working emergency management, somewhere between 33 to 50% of his job. And that's it for the county. Obviously, people contribute when we have issues in the county, but it's become clear to me with evacuation planning and some of the codes work and with all of the grant funding likely coming down for landscape resiliency through the federal government, that Kittitas County is going to be at a significant disadvantage and probably not going to strategically implement the things that it needs to implement unless emergency management has somebody in wildland and fire mitigation. And so we're pushing for them to pursue that. And we believe it is very clearly the single highest risk by far to this county. And obviously it indirectly affects Ellensburg, the city itself, but it's a big deal from my perspective. So we're working on that. That's all I got.
Thank you. I attended several open houses for the Adult Activity Center had an open house. Monica was there. They, for a small one-person operation, they have a lot of activities, and I did hear that they want a new facility pretty clearly. I attended a transportation planning open house that was not city organized. It was from People for People and Buckle, I think. But anyway, that our transit staff did participate, and I think we heard a lot of comments, good comments about how transit's operated. And the Beverly Bridge dedication out near Vantage, that you can now walk or ride your bike or horse across the Columbia River at Beverly. So that really, there was a lot of dignitaries there who expressed. I learned a lot of the history of the rail, the trail, and a little bit of the sausage making to get the rail trail actually created. One person would only vote yes if it was named after John Wayne, and that is why we have the John Wayne Trail. One legislator. Also attended airport advisory meeting. We have a vacant position. Dave Ralston is moving on, and we're still working on the bike month planning. And I did yesterday go for a test ride and rode from Ellensburg to Renslow. And it's a very nice ride, and so we'll be doing that May 21st with a big group, hopefully. And hopefully, fingers crossed, there won't be wind, because it will not be a nice ride if there's wind. So with that, if there's nothing else, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.